just want to try it out. I just want to try it out. Ooh.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we have special guest Liz Beebe returning to the show. Thank you for being on the show today, Liz.
Thanks for having me back.
Welcome. Now, in 2018, you released Hush Now, Lullabies for Sleepy People, and now this summer you're going to be releasing your official debut album. What can fans expect from this upcoming project?
I think that things that I took away from Hush Now was a different way of executing vocals in the booth. So that's going to be sort of neat for people to see songs in my own words, but maybe in a quieter tone. So in Dustbowl, I do a lot of belting and a lot of using volume to convey emotion. And I would say that while this solo album is not sleepy or lullaby oriented, there's definitely some upbeat pop sounds on it. The vocals are going to sound a little bit different. So that's exciting to share with people.
Okay, yeah, and now I love your song "Try It Out" that was released, last year as well. It has such a positive, uplifting message about it, and it looks like you had a lot of fun, especially filming the music video. How did you come up with the concept for that?
Actually, my friend Jennifer DeFilippo directed that video, and we were sort of at the same time reading similar books and sort of working through, metaphysical questions about how many lives do we sort of have, and if you only have this one life, there's so many things that especially creative people, I think, get tapped into, I want to try this, I want to try that, and logistically there's generally not enough time to get through all of the things that you want to try in your life. And so she came over one night to hang out when we were still living in Los Angeles, and we were just sort of chatting about that idea, and I had written the song prior to a Dust Bowl gig. I had written to the words. I pulled over my car and just sort of jotted down the song as a poem, and then she was late coming over, and I put the song to music. And so when she got there, she had already said, I want to work with you on a music video of some sort. We hadn't locked down what it would be for, and I was like, well, let me play you this song because I just worked it out and I haven't played it for anybody yet. And she was like, that's exactly what the video is that I want to make it about. Meet the whole story of trying it out and wishing that we had more time and all the things that individuals have to give to the world and maybe feel like there isn't enough time or energy or resources for them to do that with the time they have while they're alive. And so it just sort of came together magically.
Yeah.
And she had a good friend who did amazing hair and makeup. So all of that they did in one day on site. They just transformed me from person to person. It was so fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it definitely looked like it, like I said. And is that going to be on your debut album?
I do hope that Try It Out does make it on the album. It might sound a little bit differently because that was prior to working with producer Sam Kassir. Okay. And I had this plan because of living in LA for so long. I have so many friends that are talented in so many ways. And so an effort to boost one another's creativity. A lot of my friends are filmmakers, and I sort of approached them and said, if anybody wants to film anything, I have all of these songs. I have all of these demos that I'm willing to sort of self-produce prior to going into the IndieGoGo, prior to going into the studio. So I actually have Try It Out and another video that's already in the works for one of the other songs that is likely going to sound totally different than it will on the album, but is going to come out separately as a video with sort of a more produced version of the demo that I wrote and worked on at home. So it's sort of exciting to be able to share that with people too, not only because of the awesome collaborative nature of working with talented friends and sort of creating work for ourselves in between professional jobs, but also just the idea that a song can come out one way and then adding in the collaborative nature of a producer that you work well with can change the vibe of the song, but the meaning can still be the same.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be really cool, especially, getting to, like you said, it's going to sound a little bit different. So getting the version that we've already got and then getting to hear these new ones that, possibly that might make the album. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, what were just some things that served as an inspiration for you while you've been, working on this album?
A lot of this album came from me doing like deep dive into self-care and introspection. So I like to tell people when I'm on the road, I'm always reading a book for me, and I'm always reading a book to improve myself or learn something. And if I've finished the books physically, literally, then I'm often doing that with like a podcast or something like that. So I would say that a lot of these songs came from the past year of me doing that while being on the road or while I had time at home, and just allowing myself to start songwriting, because I never really did before. I've always known myself as a singer, but because I also studied acting, my focus was never really on writing. I've always journaled, and I always enjoyed writing. My father was a English teacher, and he used to write for Yankee Magazine actually when I was a kid, and so that's always sort of been in my family, but I was like, oh, that's his thing and I'm doing this other thing. So a lot of this past year was just sort of allowing myself to go there without necessarily a plan of what to do with it. So that inspiration, to quote Lizzo, I guess, is like, I was my own inspiration. All of these songs are first person. All of these are about either my own experiences or how I feel about something. So I hope that it's a way that people can connect with themselves when they listen to it, even though they're my stories. I think they're actually everyone's stories because we're all connected.
Yeah, and it definitely sounds like this album's going to be a very kind of like personal album, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned
for sure
previously that, working with both Patreon and IndieGoGo, both of these platforms, they've become super popular, especially over like the last several years. What led to your decision to use these platforms?
Money, generally, Pat. You might be aware that the music industry is not what it was in the 90s. But in all seriousness, the great thing about Patreon and the great thing about IndieGoGo is that you can connect with people who just sort of want to be supportive or want to be involved. And the nice thing about being able to have a platform for Dustbowl fans to say very specifically, like, we obviously support this band, we come out to those shows, we buy those albums, and we want to hear what you have to say as your own artist in your own right. And so those platforms have not only been a confidence booster and a way to like fuel the fire that this isn't necessarily just for me, it is also for other people that care about what I have to say or how I have to say it. It's really neat to be able to have the feedback from those folks. So I highly encourage anybody that's making anything to use those. Send it out to your friends, send it out to your family, send it out to your followers. And people that want to be there will be there. And the beauty of Patreon is that I try to upload stuff when I have it, but I don't have a set schedule. So it's really like, if you want to be here, this really helps me. It helps me make it out on the road. It helps me afford the things I need in the studio. And if you can't be here and it's been a couple months, like this winter, I was really pretty dormant. I needed that rest off of the road and to just like do nothing and veg out and sort of refill my creative well, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then when I went back into the studio, it was important that I had done that because I had the energy and the drive to go, quote unquote, back to work. Even though I think when you're dormant, that's still sort of like you're working in another way. Yeah. So it's really nice to have those people that are supportive and understand that you're going to come and you're going to deliver, and it might not be in like a really consistent manner. And they're just here for the ride and here to give their input.
Yeah, and I think it's just something nice too, especially for talking about like the fans. I think it's a good way to kind of have like they have input as far as like creating some of these songs and stuff, so they feel like they have that tighter connection with like the artist, I feel like.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I invite people to give me their thoughts. I'll post a video of me just sort of performing a new song alone at home, maybe on guitar or keyboard, but really generally not produced at all. And then I'll write the lyrics out, and people will give me their feedback, and it's awesome.
Yeah, which that's really cool. And you mentioned as far as working on like this album. So now for yourself, how do you know when you've recorded like enough material for a project, and what kind of is that process like of deciding what makes the final cut?
I would say that it probably varies project to project. Like when we did it for Dustbowl's album, we went in with a bunch of songs and we knew we were probably going to cut 2 or 3 of them to have a certain length of an album that we wanted to put out.
Yep.
And for me, when I went in, and I worked with Sam as well, I had such a great time with him working on Dustbowl's album that I asked him if he would work with me on my solo album. And so I went in almost like a song at a time. Like the first time I went up there was just like a single session. So we just worked on 3 songs over 2 days, and we just happened to get through that many. And when I went up there this time, I had the attitude of like, okay, here's how much money I have from the IndieGoGo. So obviously financing is a factor. Finances are a factor.
Yep.
And I was like, let's see how many of these songs that I feel like are more ready we can get through. And so we sort of start with the songs that he has a clear idea about. And then when we realized how much time we have left that we could potentially add in another song or 2, then I'll like workshop the songs right there in front of him. So I'll like play them live and we'll talk about what he hears and sees, and I'll do the same. And then we come to an agreement about which ones to keep working on. So I think we got about 8 done, and who knows, like maybe we'll cut it down. Maybe it'll actually come out as an EP. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll have a couple more songs that come before it's ready and find more time to get up there. It's sort of an explorative process for me. So that's why I say it's different for every project, because with Dustbowl, that was a very clear, pre sort of marketing strategy, almost in line with what we were about to put out.
Yep.
And for me, this is much more of a looser, I don't know what's sort of meant to happen for me. Like maybe some of these songs were just so that I could get them out of me and have written them for like my own healing or my own edification. Mm-hmm. And maybe they just needed a little bit more time to mature before another idea came to me, and then that made them pop. So I'm sort of open to it, just going with the flow in terms of solo stuff.
Okay. And speaking of, of Dustbowl as well, so not only do you have your debut, coming out later this year, but Dustbowl's album is actually coming out this upcoming next week, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
How did you guys decide on the title? Is it you? Is it me?
I think that we had thrown around a couple of ideas for a while about that, and I think that really speaks to, it's sort of the vibe of the Enemy song, which is, we're really, as we travel around the country, we really feel the division and sort of like the polarity of like the heavy political conversations that have been going on. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the title came up from speaking to that. Like, we're all in this together, and we have to be able to look at ourselves, and we have to be able to communicate authentically and effectively to be able to come to some common ground for the good of everyone. And I think Is It You, Is It Me was the way that we finally landed on having that come about in sort of a way that has enough vagueness to encompass all of the complexities of that conversation. And it's also catchy and cute, so I'm for it.
And how would, as far as just like the sound, I've gotten to listen to a couple of, the songs, the singles that have been released, but how would you compare the album sonically as far as compared to, like your guys' previous projects?
I would say that, to me, the thing that stands out the most about this album is that it sort of has a more pop music palette to it. It's still us, of course, but it's like we ran the album through a pop filter, and so everything to me is like catchy, and the hooks are really memorable, and there's a lot of earworms, and the sound is upbeat, even though the music is and the messages are still really authentic and dropped in and grounded and real.
And now, being with the band for over 6 years now, has the process of recording new material for you changed at all? I know specifically for this album, You guys, it sounded like, did this in about like 2 weeks, it sounded like.
Oh yeah, I would say that it's changed. This is my third album with the band, and the first album we did a lot of it live. The first album I did, right? So Lampshade On would be that album. We did a lot of it live. We did a couple tracks in the studio, and it was not the way that I'd ever worked in a studio before, right? Like, it was sort of in a big live room with baffling, so it wasn't as much intense isolation sonically or vocally. Mm-hmm. And we had worked on those songs and played them, all year, for the most part. Similarly with the last album, the self-titled album, we had played a lot of those songs as they were written. We would work on them, give or take some time, sort of workshopping them when we weren't on the road. And then we went into the album and then sort of took those songs apart that people had mostly heard, put them back together, and then released the album with Ted Hutt, our producer for that album. And for this album, even though for the last album there was more separation, because that was something that was really important to me, so that we could either change things or go back and fix things if I didn't like how some of my parts sounded. For this album, we've only played like 2 of the songs live. Prior to the singles coming out, we've started to play some of those, but I think Sonic Boom and Beside You were the only 2 songs we were performing live. So it was really neat to be able to go into pre-production with Sam and work on these songs that we had barely played with one another, beyond just sort of getting the form down and knowing how the lyrics go. And to be able to bring that to fans with them having never heard a lot of these songs is going to be really exciting, I think, for all of us. We won't be tired of the material. They will have never heard it. I think it's going to sound a little bit different. So yeah, I'm just mostly excited about it. And this last studio experience was really fun because we had a big live room.
Yep.
Like we did when we worked with Ted. And that's where we did a lot of, like, the horns would be in there, the drums would be in there, but we really recorded a lot of stuff separately. So there isn't bleed from instrument to instrument. We had a choir of women come in and sing some choral parts on some songs, which is really fun. And then Zach and I did a lot of vocal tracking together with him in the booth that was next to the engineering room or the control room, and myself in the live room. So we could see each other, but our sounds weren't going to affect one another's recording. So it changes each time, which I think is great. I think we're always fine-tuning what we thought was missing from the last time and bringing it into the next time. But overall, I think that each way that we have executed an album has served that album in one way or another. So it's kind of cool to see that unfold organically.
And speaking of, specific songs, I know you guys have said that, you've performed, sounds like 2 of the, the songs live so far. Now, are there, out of the rest of the album, is there any other specific songs that you're, like, really looking forward to playing live for the first time when you guys hit the road soon?
I can't say that I have a favorite necessarily. I think I'm just excited overall to be able to bring the energy of some of the songs to an audience, because it's so fun I've been rehearsing because we start playing next Wednesday in Boston.
Yep.
So I've been just rehearsing to make sure that I feel super comfortable before we get back and have some rehearsal before we go on the road. And it's so fun to just sing along to them while I'm rehearsing. I can't wait to do it with people in the audience dancing around.
Yeah, and I imagine it being, when it's like, a fresh new song too, just excited to see, people's like reactions and stuff to like the new material.
Yeah, for sure.
And, with it being the start of a new year, I know we're almost going into, February, but what are just some of your, goals as far as you're looking to accomplish as far as 2020 goes?
Well, my goal for 2020 is to lean into trust, which maybe is a more spiritual answer than you were looking for. But I just feel like the more that I tap into my intuition and the more that I'm just like authentically following where I'm supposed to be, and what feels right for me and acting in a way that feels in alignment with my authenticity, and true to who I am, then opportunities and responses to situations that I want to happen inevitably come. So I'm really trying to practice what I preach and just trust that if something is happening, for instance, when we were in the studio and I thought that I really wanted to work on this one song and we ended up working on this other song, and trusting that that's happening for a reason, trusting that, like I was saying earlier, maybe there's something else that needs to be done with that song, or maybe it was just for me, and for me to hold on to the idea that it must be released feels inauthentic and almost as if what then I'm looking for is like validation from an external source, instead of saying, well, I wrote it and I like it the way that it is, and if more needs to happen to this, then it will, right? And it'll come when it's supposed to come. And just sort of like trusting in that energy, staying true to who I am, continuing on the road with Dustbowl, connecting with folks on the road, communicating all of that. So that's my goal for 2020, is to, whenever I feel sort of uncertain or like I don't know what the plan is, I don't know why I think I'm ever going to be able to read the future. I never have been able to.
but going with your gut.
But I still keep trying. So so I'm trying to let go of that and just trust.
And now, is there anything else you would like to, share with the fans?
I would just tell them to keep track of us online. We're always posting fun stuff on the internet. So either, check us out on Facebook, check us out on Instagram, both Dustbowl and myself. Check out the websites, because we're always recording fun videos on the road. We've got new merch coming out around the album. The vinyl for this album is a double vinyl. And I think in our Dustbowl merch store is the only place where you can get it in this really cool purple color that complements the cover. And most other stores are going to be selling it as the 180 black vinyl. So I would just say, follow us online and we'll keep you in the loop.
Yeah, you guys definitely make sure to pick up the album. It's coming out this next week, so make sure to get that, whether you get it, online, it's vinyl. If you're going to like one of the shows like I will be, make sure to, pick up their stuff and support them as well. And make sure to look out for Liz's upcoming project, which is coming out later this year, right?
Yeah, I don't have a set date yet, but I'm hoping for summer.
Summer. Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you again, Liz. I really appreciate, you taking time out of your day to come on the show. And I'll see you guys this upcoming week in Portsmouth.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is Liz Beebe from Dustbowl Revival, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.